Yeah, I was actually working for her. That's right. This client. We got that description.
I saw that.
Yes.
No, he's back.
Yeah.
It's like a fat penny.
Yeah. Pulled in.
Oh, me too. And I was gonna go see him.
1 minute.
And then I decided I'd clean my truck out. It's the first time since I bought it.
Yes, I hope you don't mind.
Good. So when I wanted to get business entire.
I have.
Dollar General teaching that, and you could.
All
your gummy bears, you know, turnips, here, go make something like, oh, get a professional work at it, because I know. Yes. But you just get, you have to have, okay, time, about what you know.
15.
Smarter blocks.
Yeah, make it quick. March 5th, 2025 City Council meeting for the city of Gearhart. Is there any conflict of interest by any members?
No.
No.
No? All right, moving on. Approval of the minutes, the regular meeting of the city council Wednesday, February 5th.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving on to the work session of the city council Wednesday, February 5th, 2025.
Move to approve the minutes from the work session of the city council, February 5th.
Okay, second, any discussion? Great. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. I say aye also, but I failed to say. Planning Commission, we have no minutes. Mayor's report, we have no report.
Yeah, interrupt you. When should I add this on? When should we discuss that in this version?
We'll do that right now, that way when we open up new business, we'll do it.
Okay.
All right, so we've been asked to use our logo in a CMH fundraiser. And I'd like to have a discussion under new business at that time, if I can get a consensus to add it to the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, okay. We'll do that under new business.
Thank you.
Council reports, Preston?
Just that I've attended the meeting with the FFA and the Kosh group. The last meeting they had. And it was very interesting. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Elaine?
I did an online overview of the Oregon ethics law online on a app called Workday. Been checking for the public meeting class. I haven't seen anything rescheduled on that. I did check reviews twice this month. Went over them before they went out, after the staff has done all of their work, and also following that did open the bids for the Public Works surplus truck, and got to take care of that. Went to the third firehouse town hall, went to Senator Flynn, Representative Bonamici's town hall, met with Chad a couple of times. We did discuss the Emma Badger painting and the email that's in the packet. with Chad, and we collectively thought we should update it, so it's been updated to what they requested. And that's it.
That's it? Sure.
Okay, I've done some of what Paulina talked about as far as the meetings, met with Chad a couple times. But the thing I really wanted to report on, because I thought you all might find this somewhat interesting, is I attended on February 7th, the Small Cities Region 1 meeting. And that includes, I might not remember all of them, but Seaside, Gearhart, Rockaway, Clatskanie.
Bay City, Garibaldi, Rockaway Beach.
Usually Rockaway. Anyway, you get the idea, small cities in, you know, kind of in our coast. So wanted to let you all know some of the things that were talked about, concerns that the other people, elected officials in other cities are have concerns about. Number one is the homelessness. And the thing I found interesting, I mean, that's not a surprise to me, but the thing I found interesting is that Steve Wright, who's the mayor of Seaside, explained that Seaside put all the homeless, made the place for the homeless people all in one location so that services could go to that one location, which I thought was a really pretty interesting idea. He did say that they had 10 overdoses in the past 2 weeks in that homeless camp. Other topics were workforce housing, of course, because there's a lack thereof. The new FEMA regulations, one person observed that we really do need to base our decisions as cities on the new data which FEMA will provide to us. That was his comment. Recreational immunity, it's still being worked on. One of the people commented that if we lose recreational immunity, it will kill the economy in some locations. So there's a lot of concern about that. Let's see. Big concern is water operators. Rockaway apparently is looking for 2 water operators. They have 2 openings, or they did have as of the 7th. And they're concerned because there's not a lot of people that can fill those positions that have had the training. So they are advocating that one of the community colleges, whether it's Clatsop or I think there's one in Tillamook, I think it was, do have a training program that people can get this kind of knowledge base. I thought that was very interesting. Our main public works guy has been here for 26 years. He told us the other day. So who knows how much more time we have with him. That's all I'm gonna say. I mean, I don't know what that's gonna look like. Anyway, that's a pretty big concern. Couple other things. They talked, Rockaway just engaged a consultant to help them create a strategic plan. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if a strategic plan is the same as a comp plan or no, it's what?
Totally different.
Okay, totally different. So I thought that was kind of interesting and I don't know, I just wanted to throw that out there for people to think about and a possibility for us. Second thing was that some of these cities are inviting community organizations in their area to come to city council meetings to update citizens on what their organizations are doing. Thought that was a very interesting idea. And lastly, they talked about a Facebook page for city updates, which would be a little bit different than our blog because Facebook might reach a few more people. Or you could call it a community bulletin board or whatever you want. So anyway, those are some of the things I found interesting in me. That's all I have to say.
Dana.
Okay. Well, I attended well, first of all, let me start off with my shout out. My shout outs today are normally I give a shout out to somebody within the city that has been doing what I think is an astounding job. And I think tonight I need to give my shout out to the counselors that are on this council and the mayor. We are all volunteers, and I have personally seen the abuse that we can take for volunteering. And I know that the good work that we've done, all of the achievements that we've made, at least since I have been elected. And I'm very proud to be part of this council, and I just wanted to let you all know how much I appreciate you. I've gone to several meetings this month, which I'm gonna talk about in just a minute. And at just about every important event that I went to, or event that I thought was important to represent Gearhart in, there was at least one of you there, and that means a lot to me. Thank you for being so engaged. Okay, so speaking of the meetings I've attended, I attended the county commission meeting to give an update on the public service safety building, our efforts now, and to give them my opinion as a citizen regarding how important the health of Gearhart's component of the county's emergency response network is to protecting the safety, property values, as well as the insurance rates in the entire county. And then I gave that same message again at a town hall with Representative Bonamici and to Senator Merkley and other Clatsop County elected officials. And I'm happy to report that afterwards, Senator Merkley's field rep reached out for a follow-up discussion. We had an initial discussion. He made suggestions regarding funding sources for up to $5 million of soft costs or equipment that we might be able to pursue. No guarantees, but he also expressed support and asked me to provide him with a letter justifying, this project, and also to invite him to our May Public Service Building Committee meeting. So I will do that. And then I toured Seaside's Fire Station Open House and received a lot of information from Chief Daniels, and I was happy to hear him say how important Gearhart is to, meeting his obligations within his city and throughout the county. He agrees with me. Water Caucus Day is in Salem on March 20th, and I have committed myself to going to that. And then this month, I also have the Classic Economic Development Resources meeting. So I understand that the next LOC Small Cities meeting is, if you look online right now, there's no specific date or there's no specific place. I don't think what's going on with that. But if I find out more, I'll make sure that information is spread to everybody, letting you know about the date and the location. Right now, they have it scheduled for April 25th with an undetermined location.
No, they figured that out.
Did they? But that's kind of weird because usually it's like the first Friday of the month, so.
So I did call them.
Oh, okay.
I checked with Chad first. And I said, could we host that? And they said, well, we already have, I forget where it's gonna be, Tillamook maybe?
Okay,
Someplace fairly close.
okay.
So I signed us up to host it, I think next fall, or I can't remember. I'll get that information.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Great, is that it?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Chief Gregory.
Good evening. Stats are completed. They should be in your packets. I was able to get those done by council this month, so yay. Officer Mrez is going to California next week for defensive tactics training. If you don't know, he's into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Where's
it go? He's going to the LA area. He's got some family down there too, so he's
I'd be
gonna.
curious to know where. Not today, but.
I'll get with you on it. But he's into jiu-jitsu, and this is a stellar course for him. He's gonna do a great job, and we're happy to be able to send him to us so he can be our defensive tactics instructor.
Nice.
Computers, shout outs, speaking of shout outs, Lieutenant Andy Hazenkamp, who's with the OSP, he runs the Astoria command. He's actually a Gearhart resident. He was able to work with me, and we secured 5 laptops for Gearhart PD that are tough books, or Panasonic tough books, so that we can move in, transition them into the vehicles and operate our new RMS records management system and computer aided dispatch in our vehicles. So that was a huge step, big cost savings there. So we're very thankful for OSP for doing that for us. And last but not least, we have some new walls that are going up in the police department to add compliance for the CIS review that we had for evidence-based things and security. So if you step in there here soon, you might notice there's a little bit of a difference, and it's a work in progress, but it's on its way. That's all I got.
Well, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. Como.
Thank you, sir. You guys may have been expecting Division Chief Park this evening to continue with the cost recovery service ordinance stuff. We didn't get there, where we wanted to do with it. We're in the middle of two big audits going on, one with our ISO review, that takes place every 10 years. We're in the middle of that, and our DLO, which is District Liaison Officer, which audits, all of our certifications every year through our state certification stuff. We're going through both of those reviews and audits at the exact same time. So didn't quite get, the other stuff we wanted to with that. A quick thing from last month, we had 80 calls of service. 27 in the city, 46 in the district, and sent out 7 times. And that puts us 21 incidents ahead of last year. By the end of last month, so the end of February 2024, we were 112 incidents ahead of where we were at that time last year. Besides that, the only thing I have to say is thank you again for approving the funds for the vehicles. Quick update on that is I'm about 30,000 under budget with that. I'm almost all the quotes and stuff in with that. So combined together, so not everything's solid and stuff going forward there, but doing what I can to move forward and bring stuff from the vehicles in from there.
Thank you.
So thank you guys very much.
And we'll see you later.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Master of Money.
Let's see. So in the general fund, 2 noteworthy franchise revenue payments were in 10004 to Northwest Natural Gas and 10008 CenturyLink. These 2 franchise payments are only made annually. So although CenturyLink wasn't that much money, that's all we're going to be getting this year. There was a payment in 10013, fines imported forfeitures. For Gearhart's portion of court fees collected for municipal court. We run court here in Gearhart, and the fees go into a liability fund. And then Angelina, our municipal court clerk, does a distribution of that revenue. And so that revenue is what comes back to us to support the court department line item. So that was specifically for fees collected. There was also a miscellaneous payment in Special Revenue Fund 78, Public Works Equipment Reserve for the sale of the surplus Ford truck. And a big thank you for Councilor Cochran for assisting us in that sealed bid opening for that vehicle. Noteworthy in expenditures was the annual debt service payments on the city's 2 water bonds, which is in Fund 20. The city made its final interest and principal payment on the 2015 refunding series bonds, and the 2021 refunding series goes through March of 2031. So we will have one of our debt service bonds dropping off this year. It's officially paid off.
So in plain English, what you're saying is people's taxes, property taxes will look a smidge better.
Lower, correct.
Okay.
There were expenditures in Fund 74, Fire Apparatus and Equipment Reserve, which was for the approval and purchase of the 2 new fire vehicles and upfitting costs. The 2 vehicles are on site. They're parked out there if you've seen them, but they're not ready for daily use. They still have some additional work that has to be done to them before they're actually ready to go out on sites. There was also payments made in Fund 79 Building Reserve for the Public Safety Facility Project as we continue that, which included payments for the work by architects, the project manager, the geotech, and survey and utility locate companies. So had some expenditures there this last month. The city's state revenue sharing fund 45 still doesn't have enough funds to cover the grant awards that we awarded this year. To date, the city has received 11% less revenue than this time last year in that fund. We still have one more payment. And I am anticipating enough funds to cover all of our grant awards. We get that payment usually in late May. However, I don't feel comfortable issuing all the grants without the revenue to cover the expense, just in case something happens. I'm looking at 2 payment options. We can wait until all the revenue comes in and pay them all out, which would probably not be likely until June. Or we can pay 50% now in March and then 50% in May or June. And I think that would probably be the best way to go, because we already have that money. We would be covering what we're doing, and then we'll still get another payment to decide if revenue is looking good enough. But I think we'll be fine in order to meet all of those. I don't think we'll have much of an ending fund balance, which I was hoping to have at least 5,000, but I'm gonna think no with the lower revenue. As city staff starts working to create a balanced budget to present next month, we're looking at increased costs with limited increased revenues. As Attorney Watts' concern over PSU's population estimates, continues to be a discussion, and a very valid one for us. The current LOC state revenue report comes out every year, and it came out a couple of months ago, but it shows that our population estimate has decreased by 28. And that reduces the amount of state revenue shares and streets, OLCC liquor, marijuana, and cigarette tax for us. So we're actually going to be getting less, because that state revenue share number is based on the PSU populations. So we get a decrease in how much we would be receiving. Clatsop County sent out a notice this week advising that they are anticipating 3 potential refund credits for the 2005-2006 tax year, which are with Georgia Pacific, Pacific Core, and Charter Communications. And they have estimated that Gearhart's portion of the property tax revenue holdback is about $38,000. And that might not seem like a lot, but that is a lot for us in our property tax. And so they will be they're anticipating holding that out, because when anybody files a potential assessment credit, the county has to make sure that they have a certain amount of money in a fund in case they have to pay it back. So they will estimate all ORSs calculation, and they put that money aside. And so they are estimating we'll lose $38,000 next year in property tax, which is just about what our increase is. So.
And at what time do they determine that that money is no longer needed to be held aside and returned to us?
When the suit is settled.
Okay.
So it goes through a magistrate guide setting, and then once they made a ruling on it, then the money would come back to us if it comes back, or goes to the.
Can they increase it? Do you know?
I think you have to file the amount that you would have,
Okay.
the companies file how much they think it is. So I don't think it's more.
Okay.
It could be, no, I don't think it's more. I think they're pretty good with determining how much it is. So it's gonna be an interesting budgeting year.
That's it?
That's it.
Thank you so much. All right. Peter?
Yeah, so piggybacking onto that, I formally appealed our Portland State population amendment, and they've accepted the appeal, though have not made a determination yet. I just want to thank staff from a lot of city departments for helping with this. After having a telephone call with PSU about what sort of evidence they would need, we went about gathering that evidence. And, for population growth over the age of 18, we looked at voting registrations from comparing 2020 to 2024. We looked at the census estimates for, we looked at children attending school, so ages 5 to 17 and then under the age of 5. Also looked at the fire response calls, water usage during non-summer months. And all of that led us to believe that Portland State has underestimated our population by 246. We asked for an upward adjustment of that amount. All evidence is that they're just significantly off, which is exactly what it was between 2010 and 2020, when their estimate of our growth compared to the actual growth measured by the census, our growth was 4 times what they had predicted. And that is not over. They did a projection for our 50-year period starting in 2024 and going to 2074, and they had our population growth. They had our total population over the next 50 years at 2,287. If you compare that to what we believe our population is now, that is less. They're predicting less growth over the next 50 years than we've had over the prior 4, and that we had over the prior 10 and the 10 before that. And what our water usage is showing is an increase of about 3%, a little more than 3% a year. That tracks with the voter data and everything else. So all numbers are pointing in the exact same direction except Portland State. And they're required by state law to post their methodology on their website. They will not. It's not on their website. They're not telling us what they look at other than saying they look at a variety of numbers. And it appears like they're it appears like there's one county in particular and one city in particular that is that is getting a lot of growth, and then the rest of the counties and a lot of other cities being underestimated. And so we've provided that to them as well. So if you look at, again, voter registration data, which is the best, not all people were the 18 and registered votes, but that's probably, it's one of the most accurate ways of measuring it because of our voter laws. They don't seem to be looking at that and doing their estimates. So it's hopefully we'll get a result soon. Hopefully we'll get our fair share of state funds. And you know, I expect that this is going to continue getting attention, and we're certainly going to be bringing it to the attention of others if we don't get accurate numbers, because it wasn't just a state shared revenue. That was how ARPA funds were distributed. That there's a lot of other money that comes from the state that is based on these numbers, and we just can't leave that money on the table. Beyond that, we had a case that we've been able to in municipal court that we were able to settle, which is great news. We always want to come to a resolution when we can. And just a reminder to everyone that our system in Gearhart is complaint driven. So when people make a complaint and make us aware of something, that we need to, you know, demonstrate that we're responding, if for no other reason for our insurance. But that is so that is what we have. It's not people necessarily going looking for something. It's a neighbor or someone else making a complaint. So and beyond that, I'm working with Garrett and Angelina and Chad on some potential land use stuff, because we got our buildable lands inventory and housing needs analysis back, and kind of feels like deja vu, in the numbers that are projecting, like if we've had growth like we've had, and you know, a lot of people have been here longer than I've been visiting, but it's pretty visually apparent, then how are they saying that's just gonna suddenly stop? And, you know, what data are they using to say that, you know, we're gonna add a couple hundred people over 50 years when that's not the lived experience of anyone. So we're politely pushing back on all these numbers and encouraging other cities in Clatsop County to politely push back on their numbers so that we'll make sure that we don't have another housing crisis. And that what is reflected also reflects reality. So it's been, you know, I had naively thought that when we pointed all this stuff out to PSU after our first housing needs analysis and buildable lands inventory, that they would then not do what we previously pointed out that they did. And so it's really disappointing that we're expending, you know, again, the same amount of time and energy. And in some respects, it feels like we're proving negative. Because well, look at this data. It's like, no, you don't, you know, the data is what the data is, like at some point. So that is, hopefully by next month, I won't have to talk about our population estimates. That's my goal, but we'll see if that happens.
Do you know, are we the only city in Clatsop appeal with them? Do you know that engineer?
The cities I represent are appealing. Cause this is like, I mean, I have a city that the PSU's estimated population increase is less than their increase in registered voters. And the people from the increase in students in that school district from the city is 27% increase. And then Portland State was like, well, you have there's some data that shows you have like a 20% vacancy rate, and it's like there are 5 houses for sale citywide. So no, anyway. So this is not, I guess the good news is not just a Gearhart problem. The bad news is like, how is this not just, you know, how are they so off in ways that hurt cities, some cities, and help some cities?
I'd like to know, I mean, if PSU is totally neglectful on this whole deal, why don't all the cities in the state of Oregon lobby the legislature, since they're in session now, to take it away from them and give it to somebody else?
I mean, I think that there's a lack of awareness in cities of the issue. And when I've gone to the PSU meetings on this, there have been like 2 of us in the room, and then PSU staff. And, you know, if they're talking about these issues, oh, well, you know, that for this year, it was actually, you know, if you look at 1 year, it kind of looks like they're not off by that much. And then if you look at over a 10-year period, which is how they do it, then they're really off. But yeah, no, you know, this all, my interest or awareness in this happened when I was, when a city I represented was applying for urban growth boundary expansion, and we had more registered voters in the city than Portland State's population estimate. So it's like, not all people 18 plus, and it was not by a small amount. And I asked them to correct the number and they wouldn't. So then I started thinking, well, is this a one-off problem or is this a problem of more significance? And the problem is that until you get the census is the true up.
Mhm.
So until you get your census, we're all arguing over numbers. And we only get the true up every 10 years. Yeah, but I think more people are becoming aware of it. I've gotten calls from a couple of counties. And I'm thinking that, I think hopefully things will come to a head in the next year. And I agree with you. I don't think that they should assume population a growth rate that's less than the prior 10. I think that should be the default unless there's a major event that happens one way or the other, so you can point to those numbers. And nobody has a crystal ball, but when I see them saying we're only going to grow by a couple hundred people over a 50-year period, I just don't understand how anyone would say that.
We grew almost 200 people during the COVID crisis.
Yeah,
I mean, are they just ignoring that or?
yeah, short answer, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about revenue to the city, right?
Yes, yeah, no, and when I said to them, I said, we couldn't even use you should only be doing a buildable lands inventory housing needs analysis every 10 years, We couldn't even use our last one because the numbers were, when we ground truthed our numbers, the ground truth said that the number of lots we had were about half of what the people initially said. Because they had a bunch of land west of the no build line as being buildable, and there were a bunch of other problems. And one of the Portland State people said to me, well, you can just do a new one. And my response was like, it cost countywide, and granted it's grant funds, but it costs around 500 grand plus all the staff time that Garrett and Angelina or whomever are taking in order to participate in this. Like, it's not just the cost. And yet, yeah, it seems like they've got a really cavalier attitude towards these numbers, and these numbers can make a huge difference in a community. So,
Well, is there something that, can we lobby the legislative body to get on their case?
yeah, I think that's the next, what I first would like is some resolution over our appeal. Because again, like I have in multiple jurisdictions put together a pretty comprehensive picture of these issues. And if we don't win our appeal with them, that to me is just more evidence of bad faith, because we've spent significant time. I've spent significant time on this. You guys pay me a flat amount per month, so you haven't had to pay extra, but like, this has been, and all the times that I've talked to Chad, okay, well, how about, can we get this data or can we get that data? And what does this show or that show? And just brainstorming through all the ways that we could illustrate what we all see with our own eyes. And then they're reducing our population.
I'm just wondering whether or not, if the legislature took away their funding, how they would feel about it.
Yeah, no, I think an entity needs an entity that's accurately reporting needs to be doing the work. That's my opinion.
Okay. Peter, I got a question for you about the Ethics Commission new ruling for citizen committees and their noticing of the meetings and how it goes back on the city council. Do you know anything about that, or could you look into it and get back to us on it?
Yeah, I can. I know that there has been a dispute about neighborhood associations in Portland that receive city funds, were barring the media from their meetings and were saying that they weren't subject to, public records rules. And that a newspaper called the Northwest Examiner appealed that, and then the former DA issued a letter opinion saying that that was correct, that they weren't subject to those rules, which I would completely disagree with. But yeah, so that's kind of, as I understand it, that's what's been kind of creating the push for a better definition of who's subject to the public meeting laws. But I will do a little more digging and make sure
Thank you.
that you guys are on it.
Great. City Administrator Chad Sweet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Trees have been keeping me pretty busy. I've been working a lot of different permits with trees, and most everything is going pretty well with that. Had a few reports of some trees coming down. We followed it up. We've made things right with folks. We're catching up with them and helping them understand the new ordinance. We could probably do a little bit better communication, or let me say more communication to some folks. So we'll look at finding some space in the water bills and some other places to make sure that the residents of Gearhart knows that there is a tree permitting process. We make it as simple as possible. And so far it's been working. The tree ordinance has, but it's taken a little bit more time than what I thought it would take. I'll continue to collect information and work through that scenario and report to you in the upcoming months, especially during the budget process.
You keeping a record of the complaints that you have? I'd like a record of that at some point. I'd like to follow back up with you about how much time you're spending on that.
Gotcha. Yeah, we can do that. So that's going well. We just had a situation where there was a tree cutter that came into town, didn't know about the ordinance and started cutting away at some trees. We are slowing things down a little bit for them, making sure that they know what the ordinance is. I have a meeting with them tomorrow. And we're gonna spend some time to make sure that they know how things go in Gearhart. And so we'll continue to do that. Tomorrow, I have, yes, tomorrow's Thursday. I have all the city administrators and the county administrator coming to our fire station we do a monthly meeting with just us to discuss various issues that are going around, law changes, that sort of thing. And they want to see our fire station. So we're gonna have the meeting in our fire station because they've been hearing some things about it and they'd like to know what's being said. So that'll be tomorrow. None of you are invited to that. We'd like to talk about our counselors. The public works staff is, I think, 95% finished the sodium hypochlorite project. It is being started up now with a representative, and I didn't hear this afternoon because I got busy on meetings on whether or not they finished that, but they're very close. So that's another good upgrade and update to our water treatment facility. And
Question,
they work very hard on that. Yes, sir.
are we still producing our own chlorine with chemicals and not using the hypochlorite?
I don't know about today. I'm not sure if they finished it off today, but what they've been doing is taking the 12% chlorine that you can buy, which is not the safest. Usually what you get in a store is about 4% chlorine. We're using 12% and diluting that down to a 0.4%.
Right.
And then using that. So we might be, but it's going to be within the next couple of days that we should be able to produce our own.
Okay.
Yeah. The building department, I had a little discussion with Ms. Justine today. We're finding that the building department's down quite a bit with incoming permits. There has not been as much activity as there has been in the previous 3 years. For sure, to the tune of almost about $100,000 down in around there. The nice thing about that is I'm sorry that the building's not occurring, but one of the things about that is that our building official is not an employee of the city. So do keep in mind that that person is a contractor. So if we're not bringing in the revenue, we're not paying out as much in expense. So it's evening out a little bit, but we have some built-in expenses such as Angelina and the planning department. And that we do on a daily basis. It doesn't feel like it's been slow. A lot of people have been asking questions and looking at properties and trying to figure out how to develop them. So there might be quite a few coming up. Maybe we'll get some catch up, but as of now, we're down quite a bit. And that seems to be the way it's going to most of the other cities for those that I've talked to, but it'll be a topic during tomorrow's city administrator and county administrator building or meeting. Also, just to piggyback on, the council has been very busy. You folks have been really coming in. I appreciate the volunteerism. You've been coming in and spending a lot of time with me. But not just to find this out or find that out. You've been asking how you can help, and I really appreciate that. Staff really appreciate that. So when you come up with something, you try to come up with something. That's been working really well. In regards to taxes, and to just beat that one a little bit more. I think the reason that Gearhart is so into trying to figure this situation out to make sure that we have all the revenues due to us coming in is because Gearhart taxes are so low. Our taxes are for the city of Gearhart, $1.50 per thousand, plus another $1 per thousand for your bonds for the water treatment facility. All of the taxes that come in just for the general fund is about $715,000. The residents of Gearhart pay about $715,000 to the city of Gearhart in taxes. Our budget is $3 million. So as a percentage, and these incoming revenues that we're not getting, and as we all know, the increased expenses that are occurring, it's getting pretty tight. And Gearhart's always been really thrifty. We've done this in a really tight, scrappy way, but it's starting to really feel some pressure. So it's going to be some great conversations during the upcoming budget committee meetings. I appreciate the people that are looking to get involved in that. It's going to be educational for them. But that's one of the reasons that Peter is going out for this, because it does mean a lot to Gearhart. In our $1.50 that we charge, all of these people that have moved into town are not necessarily moving into new houses that are causing more tax revenue. They're moving into houses that were already built, have already been established, have already been owned. It's their second homes that they're using. And yet they're using some more water as well, and some more fire and some more police. So we're gonna work through that, but it's getting tighter and tighter every year. So we'll keep you informed on what's happening. And again, Justine mentioned earlier that we have now paid off one of the 20-year bonds for the water treatment facility. There are two. The two of those bonds totaled about $1 per thousand for residents. With one of those gone, yes, I'm going to estimate, and Justine's probably going to want to punch me in the shoulder. You can try to estimate this, but it'll be about 45 cents less per thousand for taxes during the next year because of that payoff, which is great. So we're $1.50 for our general fund and about $1 for our bonds. That's what the residents pay into Gearhart, and about 45 cents per thousand is what we'll be dropping during this next piece. And I think that's great. That's my update for now. Any questions?
Yeah, do you want to say a little bit more about the bullet point that says you had meetings with planning and the cottage landowners?
Yeah, we're just, we've been continually working with the people who own the cottages. They are still very much interested in coming into the city of Gearhart. All things off the table that were on the table before, we're no longer considering putting the fire station there, right? That was the property and location that we were looking at. We've already made up our minds as a council and staff that we're going to be looking at this current location, so that's not a factor. They are still very much interested in coming into the city of Gearhart, and they're exploring those ideas. They're taking a look at the water situation as we are. They're looking at the density that they can bring in. So they're still in communication with us, but we have not received any applications or pre-applications at this point.
When will we get to see the buildable lands inventory that we've gotten?
So we got a draft of it last week.
I think so, yeah.
We got a draft for Colin last week. We had asked that they remove some lands that we don't think would be likely to develop at higher levels of density, like the Gearhart property. Initially, they had taken that off the map. Now they put it back on the map. So we're working to understand, okay, if we've given you these reasons about why something's not buildable, then like a 3,000 square foot lot, then why suddenly are you assuming that that's buildable? And we haven't received those answers back yet.
Did you realize, of course, that the minimum lot size is 5,000 feet?
I mean, we have very clearly communicated that to them, and yeah, it is a little bit frustrating that they get the reports and to read that that they've removed anything under 3,000 square feet. It's like, okay, well, that's not the number. So, yeah.
Okay.
Moving on. Thank you very much, Peter. Ciao. Justine. You too. I'm not forgetting you. All right. So now we're going to visitors section, FFA, Chris Monstantero.
Master Andrea.
Chris, you're going to introduce,
Sure.
take over.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councilors. Myself, the project manager of Plosh Group, I'm representative for the public safety building, and John Pete with FFA Architecture are here. We want to continue the topic that was discussed last work session, last Wednesday, narrowing down the 5 options that we had for the public safety building to 2 options that we can further develop a complete conceptual design on and a detailed cost estimate. So based on the feedback from the community during the community meeting number 3 that occurred, we have gathered that insight, and John has prepared a small recap, if you will, of the options and the ones that we are recommending council move forward with based on the community feedback, so that we can continue with the design and detailed cost estimates. So with that, I will turn it over to John.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I think we really enjoyed the discussion last week. I think the good news for the team is that the community recommendations, feedback we got from all the departments and staff and city council ideas all align. And so moving forward with council's motion tonight, we're planning to proceed with a combination of options 4 and 5. So this includes the purchase of the Pacific Power property, moves public works to the back of the site with access off of First Street, and integrates City Hall. And this, what we heard from the community, provides the most flexibility and functionality, which were the community's highest priorities. And then in addition, we're going to carry option 3 forward. And for the scenarios that didn't include City Hall, it had the highest community votes as well as meets the functionality needs for the departments. So we're looking forward to diving into the next phase of design. And then I'm happy to share out or answer any questions further from the work session if council has them.
Anyone have any questions?
No, sir.
I think we pretty much beat that horse during that meeting. Okay, well, you got no questions. Do you have a question?
Beat the horse?
Dead horse.
So are we still calling one of them 4.5 and the other one's 3?
Yes, yeah. Options 4 and 5 we're going to combine because we heard from the community the pros for both of those. And there's actually a scenario that we're calling what you quoted option 4.5. That's a combination to meet those goals. And that's what we're going to plan to move forward with.
Any other questions?
Deb Papadopoulos here. So what you were speaking about, situation number,
Deb,
Ms. Deb?
this is not the time for a question. I believe
Oh.
that would come under visitors. Public communicate, no, it won't. I'm sorry, Deb. This is not for discussion. You can bring it up next week, but next month. But we do not have any communication with the public on this.
At this meeting. Deb, if you'd like to forward your questions to me, I'd be happy to get those out to the folks that can answer them for you.
Okay. So there are motions on your paper. Of course, it doesn't say the 4.5 or number 3.
Right, that's why I asked that.
So if you make a motion, please put 4.5 and number 3 options in your motion. Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve FFA and the community's 2 recommended options, 3 and 4.5, to move on to the conceptual design and budget phase.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And that's unanimous. All right. So start drawing, start penciling in. Whatever it is you're gonna be doing, we're waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. And thank you, Chris. I know that you both have things that you need to do, so you definitely don't need to stay with the rest of the meeting unless there's any other questions.
No, but I want to make sure everyone hears at this time that the Public Safety Building Community Meeting number 4 is on Monday, May 19th, between 6 and 7:30 p.m. at the Gearhart Volunteer Fire Department. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Got to wait that much time just for 5 minutes of work. Thank you. All right. Next, we have Chris Hyatt of Hyatt Geosciences on the water rights application update.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Chris, I believe that you're on and ready to go. Chris is going to update us on where we're at with the water rights applications.
Hello, let me, of course, I'm having technical problems. There we go. Everyone's favorite part of the show, the science section. Thanks for having me back. I'm gonna kind of go over where we left and I'm gonna share my screen. Oh,
Yes, Miss Christie was going, I forgot to mention that to her, so she'll get you set up here. There you go. Thank you,
Sure.
Christie.
okay. Oh, I lost that. Oh. Gotta love technology.
We
So
can see your water demand.
Okay, so in our last episode, we had kind of explained what we're doing, why we're doing it. Obviously, we have the orange line here is the water that we're allowed, and then the blue line is the water that we actually pump. And as you can see, we get in July and August, and we're in a deficit. And that is the time period where we have to pump in or supplement water from Warrenton. And the chart here you can see, we're pumping, 10 million gallons a month, give or take, to fill that gap. moving forward, we would go out 20 years to 2045. We can see that gap gets bigger quite a bit. We're now up to 20-25 million gallons per month that we're short of. And that's based on our going back to you were talking about population. Our population growth rate was 2.26. And that is based on the US Census Bureau. Because they seem to be the most consistent and noteworthy of the various surveys. PSU seems to be a little squirrely, and it's also the growth rate that you used in your water conservation and management plan that you submitted to the state about a year ago. So there's some questions about, I thought I would, no, not gonna. There were some questions about, I share again. So you're seeing this figure?
Yeah, we see stream natural conditions.
Yep. Okay. This is the problem we're dealing with the state in applying for a new water rate to fill in that gap that we find ourselves in July and August. The state is concerned, and always has been since we first got the water right, that our pumping from the well field would impact Neocox Creek and also would impact possibly impact the Pacific Ocean and not really impact it, but we would draw in salt water. And so this figure kind of shows you the dynamic involving the natural conditions where groundwater is flowing into and into the stream, in this case Neocoxy. And under a pumping scenario, we would actually be pulling water out of the stream and or capturing water that otherwise would have made it to the stream. If that makes sense. Another, not sure how to switch screens here.
You may have to go out and come back in, Chris.
Yeah. So this figure shows the saltwater intrusion fear that WRD has. And you can see we have groundwater here. We have our pumping wells, which are creating a drawdown effect in the aquifer. And then down here, we have what's called a saltwater wedge. And that is saltwater is heavier than freshwater. But there's two systems of freshwater trying to discharge out the Pacific and the seawater are kind of battling at the pressure front. And the freshwater is winning. It's keeping back the Pacific Ocean from moving inland. But if we pump too much or too fast for our wells, then this saltwater wedge will kind of move towards the well. And if it gets too close, then we'll be drinking salt water. So that's kind of a schematic of the system and the two kind of hurdles that we're trying to overcome, prove to the state that we will not have any impacts.
So you're not
either-
saying, sorry,
Go ahead.
just so I'm clear, you're not saying that is occurring, you're saying that is what the state fears will occur.
That is what they fear and what we're monitoring. We have in this figure, let's see if I can. So we're doing a model, a groundwater model. We'll be collecting all this data over the last 10 years, a lot of data. We're collecting things at groundwater levels at every 2-hour interval, and we're collecting surface water data from Neocoxy every 15 minutes, day in, day out, year after year, for the last 10 years. So we've accumulated, a lot of data. So here we have your well field production wells. That's where the water is coming from that you drink. Then we have MW1, 2, and 3 out to the west there. Those are the wells that are sentinel wells designed to give us a warning if there's any seawater moving towards the pumping wells. Kind of alarm bells or true sentinel wells. And then to the east there, we have CMD4, 5, and 6. Those wells are monitoring water that cooler is flowing to Neocoxy Creek. Then we have the surface water station here. That's the one that's measuring every 15 minutes. So we've started groundwater models using this 10 years of data to really conceptualize the whole flow system, what's going on, what's not going on. And what's not going on in our current pumping scenario is that we're not seeing any saltwater intrusion and we're not seeing any impacts in the Neocoxy Creek. Moving forward, with our water right, if we want to pump more water, then you get more worried. Well, we're still worried that you're going to pump seawater or water from Neocoxy Creek. This is a report from 1967. It's pretty much the only geologic report that exists for Gearhart in the Astoria, Warrenton area. And these contours here, if you're not familiar with the contour map, are lines of equal elevation. So you put the arrows in here to try to show you how the water is flowing. And right along Marion Drive or Marion Avenue is kind of a topographic high, and the groundwater contours, elevations pretty much mimic the surface water elevations. So where you have a peak, groundwater flows this way or ground flows the other way. So right along Marion there, where it's kind of a mountain, a ridge, you have water flowing to the west, then water flowing to the east. Kind of a simplified diagram. By the way, these are from the model that we are currently developing. And there is a draft. We haven't QA'd these, has gone through peer review. So you're seeing some mistakes and perhaps some typos. These will get cleaned up. So I'm just going through giving a visual of what we have in the model. So as I don't have to tell you, you get a lot of rain, upwards of 75 inches. that's, 6+ feet of rain a year. That is really a saving grace for you because there's so much water flowing through the aquifer system that it will be a recharge. And it's what's keeping the Pacific Ocean at bay and from us sucking in salt water. It's also what's keeping Neocoxy Creek flowing year round. And Neocoxy Creek also, is is tidally influenced. So any impacts we would have to it are really would be, if we were taking water out of Neocoxy, 6 hours later, it would all be replenished with the next incoming tide. So any effect would be kind of momentary. These are wells just showing over time, the 10 years, everything's steady. You're seeing this is a 10-year timeline starting in 2009 to present. So you see a yearly fluctuation, which mimics your rainfall amounts and recharge. So it's water levels are up in the winter time and they're down in the summertime. And it's pretty much just straight line. We're not seeing any ups or downs in any of our monitoring wells, which means again we're not having any impact to the surrounding aquifer. This is a conceptual model that we came up with. It still needs some fixing, but it gives you an idea of how and where water is flowing from and to. And you're probably familiar with the hydrologic cycle. Water comes, out of this case, the ocean, gets the clouds are rain comes down, water hits the land, then water infiltrates the ground or goes into surface water. Some of it evaporates, some is taken up by vegetation onward, and there's a whole number of places where water goes once it hits the ground. This is showing just kind of a simplified model of where how we see groundwater flow. We have shallow water going. This is that mound I mentioned right in here, kind of Marion Street. It's that ridge. Water to the east is going towards the Neocoxy Creek, and water to the west is going towards the well field and towards Pacific Ocean. And the shallower or the deeper water here is kind of the regional flow. That water down there is pretty much all going to the Pacific Ocean. So we're worried about the water from the well field, our drawdown, possibly impacting Neocoxy Creek, which you can see is quite a bit away. It's almost a quarter mile. This is showing the concentrations in some of those monitoring wells, the water quality. We monitor for chloride and TDS. And chloride is a measurement of salt or indicative of salt, and TDS is a measure of stuff, all the other stuff, number of salts and cations and anions, and you can almost think of it kind of as a turbidity. And as you can see, each of the wells, this bottom line is chloride, and that's all the sampling we've done over the last 10 years. It could not be more of a flat line. And the similar with TDS, which is the orange line, it shows some fluctuations, but you expect that because it's measuring a number of parameters. and then just blowing through. So these figures, here we show, this is a Nicosi Creek, and we're measuring again TDS, all the stuff that's in the water, as opposed to the water levels in the creek. The blue line are is the water levels in the creek. And you can see those go up and down. And this is about a 1 year period we're looking at, not even less. It's about a 6 month period. And so you can see the blue line, they go up and down, up and down. And that's the tidal influence that happens, 2 times a day or 4, depending how you count it. And the green lines are showing kind of the lunar cycle, what I call the moon tides, in probably more detail than you want, but it's showing when we have a moon tide, all that stuff in the salt water coming in infiltrates into that creek and really goes much further upstream than I expected. The height of the green line is showing that it really doesn't flow back out for quite a while until a moon tide cycle is over. So it's keeping that water very salty, very marshy, and again, it kind of shows you just the daily fluctuation that we're seeing in the chemistry of the creek. Again, this is more creek material measurements, tidal fluctuations, and the orange line is a water level in a well that is nearby, showing that it is, it's all flowing together. The lines are sympathetic, showing that they're related and coincide, but you'll also notice that the orange line from the well, representing groundwater, is always above Nicosi Creek. If it was, that indicates the water is flowing from groundwater into the surface water. If we're losing or impacting Nicosi Creek, then we would expect to see the opposite, where the creek was flowing into groundwater with this relationship would be kind of reversed. Again, probably more information that you would like. And there's couple of good figures here. Again, a conceptual model where we're drawing from in relation to the creek and the ocean. And we really get into our modeling here. This is how much water we have used over the last 20 years or so. The orange represents how much water we import from Warrenton, which you can see here around 2012 is when we turned the well field on. And then we're still importing water from Warrenton every year, as you can see with the orange here, because the water rate does give us enough water in the summertime. So, and you can also see the trend, from like about 16 million gallons in 2008 up to about 20 million gallons. So if you need evidence for your population growth, certainly water demand would give you some good evidence. Getting the nuts and bolts here, I can come back to that. So here's a plan view of how water is flowing. The red lines are what we call particle traces. And that is, if I was a particle of water, how would I, where do I flow? And again, we have this if you look at the September data, uh, these are groundwater contours and water flowing perpendicular to those contours. But our capture of the particle traces show that we have this mound here, again, right along Marion Street, where water is flowing, to the east side of that mound, water is flowing to Niacoussi. To the west, it's flowing towards the Pacific. And they're kind of not, they're connected but not related. But it shows this divide here. We never crossed that divide. And this is the figure I think is very good. Again, that divide there and the well field here pumping. And the red lines show, again, our particle trace lines. They show where the water, the path of the water is going. Where you don't have we're just showing the water that is going to the wells as we pump the wells. If we lit up all the other lines, which you don't see, they're going elsewhere. They're not going to the well. So this is really just showing you how little of the aquifer we are impacting. And you'll see that there are no lines going to Niacoussi Creek, which would indicate we're taking water out of the creek. And there's no water coming from Pacific Ocean, indicating saltwater intrusion. So our capture zone is pretty isolated. And this is, I'm not sure. We have a number of different pumping scenarios. I kind of will wrap things up because we really get into the weeds here, and it's a pretty involved model. These are showing calibration curves showing that our model is pretty much right on with the observed data that we've been collecting. These lines are, following each other almost exactly. So our model is pretty darn good. And then we get in a bunch of other graphs that, I will show you this one. So these are.
Chris,
Yep.
if you could wrap up, that would be great, because I would like to end the meeting before 9 and we still have some stuff.
I will end it there. I think you get the point of what we're doing, and it's pretty involved and a pretty complex model that we're pretty close to completing. So I will end it there, and if you have any questions,
Chris, I've got a question. This is Preston Devereux. Why are we even worried about what Niacoussi? Niacoussi Creek is fed by Sunset Lake, which is also fed by Schlescher Lake inside of Camp Rylea.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the tidal influence maybe might get up to, what do we call it now? North Gearhart Loop Road or whatever.
Yep, correct.
Okay, but beyond that, the tidal influence doesn't, and it's got a constant supply of water from Sunset Lake.
Yep.
So why are we even talking about drawing out of Niacoussi Creek? I mean, we're two aquifers below that.
Yeah, we're not concerned. The state is concerned for wildlife, salmon, riparian zones, wetlands, things like that. So it's their concern, and we're showing that we're showing them there is no concern. We're not impacting Niacoussi.
Right. That was a very detailed. Chris, I really
There's more.
appreciate it.
There's
There's what?
more. There's more. I could talk all night about the details and
Oh, yeah.
Chris, I'm sure you could, but I'm not spending all night.
Sharon's got a question for you.
Okay, I didn't hear him address the submission and eventual withdrawal of the city's water rights application. I don't know if I know about, I didn't know it was withdrawn, did I?
Yeah, you
it
did.
was.
We
Yeah, it
talked
was.
about it last month.
Yeah, it was withdrawn, kind of suspended. We tried to cram it through WRD in their process, and we were trying to buy some time, get under the bar for some new rules that were coming up, and they had some questions, and they wouldn't stop their process. We wanted to submit this model with the application, and they were moving forward without that input. And so we withdrew the application and said, we'll resubmit it and we'll do all our new, the entire package rather than piece by piece.
So when's that new application gonna go in?
Like I said, we're really close on this model. The application with the model, we're looking at probably, I would say, end of March.
Thank you.
Can I one more question?
Yes?
And once you resubmit it, now I've been doing a lot of research in the first submission that we did years ago when we first got our water rights, and that was a very, very long process that ended up increasing the cost of our water treatment plant. Are we looking at a very long process for this? Because I think there are some people out there that think that as soon as we submit that, it's gonna be reviewed and come right back to us. Or there are people that think that we're not aware that this is going to be a long bureaucratic process, which I think we understand. Is that your understanding also?
It'll be a long process. I would say at least 6 months.
Okay.
I mean, really all we're doing is we have the capacity in the treatment plant for this added water. We just want to turn up the knob in the summertime, turn up the volume from 4 to 5. But it's the process, is the bureaucratic process of WRD. Everyone in the department has to touch it, and you're gonna get some feedback from DEQ, Fish and Wildlife, the Water Master. They all want to have their input as well. So, it's a slow process.
So my understanding, Chris, this is Preston again, my understanding is that when we initially requested water rights, that Warrenton objected to our 100% request.
Correct.
And now they've dropped that objection, is that correct?
They've not only dropped that objection, they've told you that we think you should look elsewhere for your water. That they don't think, they have their own growth and population problems.
I understand what Warren's problems are.
Yeah, and so they don't think they're gonna have the capacity to provide that water that they have in the past. Because they have to, service their prime customer, the warranted customers.
Any other questions?
I just have one. Chris, do you think we should be employing more water conservation measures?
Not necessarily. Like I said, you have so much water going through your system. Between the tidal influence in the creek and just the sheer, rainfall that you get, there's plenty of water. Having said that, yes, we should all do better at, conserving water. But I don't think Gearhart has a water shortage. Your plant might have a water shortage as far as how fast Mark can produce water. But as far as my standpoint in the aquifer, there is more than enough water to go around.
Can I ask one more question? I know you're going
Sure.
to, but it's important. So there are a lot of concerned citizens that are really watching this issue and they have questions. They are under the understanding, or they perhaps they misunderstood what you said last time about the septic systems and the Neocoxy Creek. And they believe that if we're pumping water for our drinking water, that is forcing septic system water into the Neocoxy Creek. And if we draw more water out, that's gonna create a hazardous condition for salmon in the Neocoxy. And they're talking about this cone of depression, which I think is what you showed us with that indentation on, near the wells and whatnot. Can you speak on that real quick?
Yeah, it's if I go back to the point that we're making in the I lost it. The more water you pump from your production wells, that water is essentially goes inland and is used by everyone, and it goes to their septic system. The septic then, recharges groundwater, and so it becomes a cycle. So the more water you pump, the more water goes back into the system. Septic is not really a problem where you are. DEQ studied this back in the late 2000s, and they really found they put in some monitoring wells, and it didn't find anything. So again, it's partly because, I'll repeat again, you get so much doggone rain that it dilutes everything. You get more recharge. Your recharge to septic system and water usage is like 4-to-1. So you're getting 4 times as much rain and recharge as water that you're using. So going to the.
And then another question that they had along those same lines is that, are we then pumping our own septic water and producing water from our septic water?
I guess conceivably you are, but you're not. Septic water doesn't necessarily mean
But we're testing for chemicals and all kinds of things in our drinking water and everything else, that if there were a problem, and even if we were to get additional water rights, we would continue to be testing, as you said, with those sentinel wells. And if we would know far in advance of a problem and take corrective action. Does that sound right?
I think we lost Chris.
Okay, good talk. Let's do it again sometime.
Actually, in the 1970s, like 76 or 77, Seaside wanted to annex Gearhart, and they wanted us to go in with their sewer system. And DEQ came down, there was a building moratorium in Paso Plains. DEQ came down here, there's a test well that's out behind Public Works here. They poured dye down there, and they meandered on down to the other test well, which was out in the dunes, and they never saw anything. And they did it like twice, and Bruce Maltman said to him, "Why don't you station somebody down at the west one when you pour the dye down here?" And they found out that the water flows from Neocoxy Creek through this great huge sand filter that we've got that we're sitting, Gearhart sitting on. And within 5 minutes, it showed up down at the other well down there. So when you go down to the beach at low tide and you get off of the dry sand and you start onto the wet sand, there's a slick that goes on out. Okay, that's the excess water that's being forced out onto the beach. So there's no way in the world that these septic fields can ever pollute the aquifer that we're pulling from at 175 feet? 150?
55.
Yeah, it's a totally different aquifer.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you very much, Chris. If you can hear me.
You're muted, Chris.
There.
You're
Yeah.
still. there you
You're
go.
welcome. You're welcome.
Okay. Have a good night.
And just add one more thing onto that. So far, all of our testing in the wells and the water that we bring up from the wells, no nitrates detected.
Okay. Moving on, the next on the list is public communications, written in oral. Oral public comment, anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgearhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. I have no one signed in. Anyone sitting here right now wishing to speak, please raise your hand. I saw that. No one? Okay, we're moving. We got a written correspondence about the picture. It's already been taken care of. So we're not going to address that letter. It's already been done. Thank you very much. There's no late written correspondence. We're moving on. Old business, anyone wishing to speak can make a 3-minute comment. We are going to go to council rules. Anyone have a question as to the interpretation of staff about council rules? You see the change for the signed acknowledgement will be in January and not November. And
Are we having a discussion about this?
well, that's the idea. Why? You have something?
Yeah.
Okay,
I would like to ask Peter to give us the pros and cons on the first sentence on page 5. That states anything a councilor wishes city staff to distribute to the public through written communication must first have a majority consensus by council in a public meeting. And the reason I'm asking him for his legal viewpoint on this is because I think to some extent there's been things that could be considered written communication by counselors that were not run through the city council as a whole. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, so I think that the goal of this kind of language is that it's not always clear whether a communication is from the city, like the kind of the official communication of the city, or kind of who's authoring it. And so I think the idea is if we were going to do mailers, whether that would be in the water bill or however we do it, that there would be kind of council consensus. So for instance, tonight Chad said, maybe we need to do a better job of educating on the tree ordinance. We're gonna try and find some space in the water bill, if that's okay with you, and it'll all be, kind of nodding because we want people to be informed. There have been other times when we've had the city do a separate mailer on something, issue of community concern. And these are things that are coming from you as a council, so you as a councilor saying, you know, there might be a misperception, or we might want to get word out that we have these town halls coming up or whatever it is, and then, you know, telling staff, yeah, please send this out. And I think that that way, if they know whether they're getting something in the water bill or another communication with the city's letterhead on it, that's coming from you, the council. And I think that's a good thing. I think sometimes that, it's like my recommendation to you, if you're going to Salem to testify, or, going to the county commission or wherever, you know, being really clear of saying, you know, I'm a Gearhart city councilor, but I'm speaking for myself, or I am a Gearhart city councilor. Last meeting, we came to consensus that we want to support, you know, this bill, and it's very important for our city, so that they understand. And I do the same thing, you know, I'll say I'm a city attorney for multiple cities, but I'm speaking on my own behalf. Or I'm a city attorney for the city of Gearhart, and they've asked me to, there was an issue with building officials that was gonna really impact us. And Senator Johnson asked me to come down, and so I cleared it with the council. They all wanted me to, and then I said, you know, I'm a city attorney for multiple cities, and here are the 2 cities that are very concerned about this issue. So I think just that more and more, my default is to ultra transparency, because the trend that I've noticed is like, it used to feel like people assumed we were all acting in good faith, and, you know, if somebody said something, or, you know, that maybe someone just misspoke or what have you. And I can't point, and it's not just Gearhart, a lot of places, the default kind of changed to like, we're operating in bad faith. And I staffed a meeting, and I had done some more than a decade ago legal work for the fire provider TVFNR. And so I just disclosed it, because I thought, you know, what if there have been a bunch of newspaper articles? What if someone's like, he does legal work for them? And it's like, no, I haven't since 2013. But I want to make everybody aware of it, and that I'm able to objectively give you legal advice. So I think, I think it's pretty important to over disclose. And I think it's pretty important that, people understand we're doing everything in a public meeting. And like the tree ordinance were brought back, like, I don't even remember how many months, but it was a lot of months.
Year and a half.
And, you know, yeah, so, but the good thing about that, even though it was frustrating, is that the public saw us trying to process this thing in real time. And I remember staffing a planning commission meeting, and then somebody saying, oh yeah, this was all, you know, like, this was a fait accompli. And it's like, when they see the painful process of us drafting an ordinance and editing the ordinance month in and month out, kind of, it helps illustrate that, yeah, we're doing everything as transparently as possible. So I guess for now, that's kind of my default. And the other thing too is the OGC, their focus on quote unquote serial meetings, which they haven't been able to provide as much clarity as I would like. But that too makes it just really important that we be as transparent as possible. And if we ever start doing a city newsletter, not saying whether we should or shouldn't, some cities do, then if people, that gives councilors an opportunity where it's then clear that it's like, if you write a column in that, it's your opinion. You know, the mayor does a monthly mayor, that's his opinion. And so something like that, then we don't have to, but if it's just in the water bill, we probably need to, follow this.
So just to ask then the obvious, I mean, when I was mayor, I did a mayor's blog post.
Yeah,
I mean, I wrote it, I uploaded it myself. I don't think I ever showed it to you before I did. Maybe I did, I don't know. But I mean, I knew how to do it, so I think I just put them up there.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about that is that everybody understood that this wasn't the city's position, it was your position.
Okay.
And, you know, again, it's just. Yeah, I mean, cause on some things you guys all agree and on some things you don't, and, you know, if one counselor wants to say that was a terrible idea and I don't like it, as long as they understand that's coming from that counselor, not coming from the city, then they're informed.
Okay, any other questions on the council rules? Well, then, if you want, and you have no other questions or discussion, you make a motion to accept as interpreted by staff. And then sometime in the very near future, you sign the last page, date it, and turn it in.
I will make a motion that we accept the document as interpreted by staff. Yeah, but with one caveat that they reprint out clean copies, throw in our box so we can sign clean copies.
We're just signing the last page, that's why it's not yellow.
Okay,
So if you rip it off and sign it now or tomorrow or next
got
month or 2 years from now. Oh.
it. So we tired then.
Yeah. All right, moving on, we're going to go to new business and
We only had two.
what?
Should we just have the motion?
We have a motion.
It was
We-
seconded.
Didn't we have a consensus? We don't need, or do we, are you saying we need a motion for the rules? Because I don't believe we do. I think a consensus is all we need. Is there a consensus?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Was there a motion made?
yes, I made,
Want to withdraw it then?
if you'd like me to withdraw it.
I think so.
Okay.
Just to be transparent.
All right.
Brown and consensed.
All right. I got 15 to go. Dana, do you have something you want? Oh, excuse me. Right now, we're going to talk about using the Gearhart logo for a CMH fundraising, and Dana's going to make a presentation. Does anyone want to speak for 3 minutes about that under new business? If not, Dana, take it away.
Okay, so I received this email as I sat down here, and because of the timeline on it, I brought it to your attention tonight. I received this letter from the president of the county commission, Mark Kahula. I'm not sure if I say his name. Mark. Anyway, he says basically that CMH is seeking matching funds. They have already received a FEMA grant award, and they are looking for some matching funds for that from the state. And to give you just a recap of what it is that they're looking for, Columbia Memorial Hospital is a full service 25-bed critical access, not-for-profit level 4 trauma center located in Story, Oregon. They're expanding its current hospital facility to support the growing need for services in the community, as well as prepare for catastrophic natural disasters through resiliency measures. As a major part of the Build CMH expansion project, CMH will integrate a tsunami vertical evacuation refuge structure, TVERS, into the construction. It will allow for 1,900 hospital patients, caretakers, staff, visitors, and the public to evacuate from the Cascadia-generated tsunami to safety on the roof at CMH. The communications center, medical, gas, electrical, and water resources, and include water, medicine supply will also be elevated, as well as they help for evacuations and supply deliveries. The building is designed to withstand the impact of a 9.0 plus Cascadia subduction event. CMH has been awarded a FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities grant for $20 million to help pay for the resiliency structure or resiliency features in the hospital expansion. The BRIC grant requires a 30% local match to unlock the federal funding. CMH is asking for the state of Oregon to partner with FEMA and provide this local match requirement of $6 million so the resiliency measures can be completed in the expansion. The ask represents only 2% of the total project cost, which is otherwise fully funded through prudent fiscal management, local private support, and existing federal funds. So he is asking if they may include, or if we would support this project and if we would allow them to include our logo. Obviously, since he sent this to me and Chad Sweet, we're not authorized to give permission on behalf of this entire city council, so I thought it was important to get this added to our agenda. And let you know, I support it. I don't see any reason why it doesn't cost us anything. And it seems like it would assist our community. I would certainly like to have this happen for me if I was in the hospital or anybody I knew was in the hospital, to know that they could do it. So I support it.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor by consensus, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on. The next is new business, and this is budget appointments. Does anyone wish to speak for 3 minutes on this subject? All right. Is anyone wanting to discuss the appointments? If not, then I will nominate Carl Lay and reappoint Eric Halpern and Kurt Penrod with consensus from the council. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. They are so appointed. Now, let's go to Dana. Do you have any concerns?
No, sir.
Sharon? Nope. Preston?
Well, if there's a 9-point earthquake,
You've got a concern.
I have a concern about Columbia Memorial Hospital
Oh, well, that's.
and our logo being on.
No, it's on the letter, not on the hospital.
Okay, I don't have any concerns. I will take a motion for adjournment.
I'll give you a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? Meeting's closed.